Under bright white light, two plastic hearts found love at first sight. One had a bullet hole, the other had a frown. But when the trial paused, oh baby, love went down. It's hot mannequin love in the court of law. No breath, no blood, just a flawless jaw. Struck a pose, then struck a spark. Made of fiberglass, but lit up the dark. Hot mannequin love with the lenses askew. Who knew Exhibit A would look so into you? She leaned just right, he's sweet just so. Like Cupid fired a dart through a Velcro torso. The jury looked confused, the bailiff blushed, the stenographer typed, objection, they're flushed. Hot mannequin love, no heartbeat, no shame, but they set off fire a dart through a Velcro torso. The jury looked confused, the bailiff blushed, the stenographer typed, objection, they're flushed. Hot mannequin love, no heartbeat, no shame, but they set off fire. The law's just the same. Crime scene dolls, now courtroom flames. In love so real, it should be in chains. Hot mannequin love, not legal but true. Just don't let the judge catch them kissing in view.
We have about, what, 3 more times to listen to that song. And it's going to have to retire for a little bit. Those mannequins, just like the mannequins in the courtroom retired in Betty's trial. I hope Puddletown makes it back and gets to hear that song again, because he is the reason for the song. Sharon, dude, I'm on time. And then she said, scratch the dude part. I won't, because I love it. Makes me laugh. I am hanging in there, Flash fan. It's getting ready to storm, so let's hope everything stays on. That's I'll be good. What's up, Lavi? How are you? Carmen, how's my favorite mom, my only mom, the only mom I need in my life? I'm good. Oh my goodness. What's up, Gabby? Hello, anyone? I'm anyone. Hey there, June. How are you doing? Is who out of town? Oh, Puddletown? I was like, who's out of town? I would say it's his work schedule, Flashman. So that's generally. I said Lavi. Flashman, I'm going to come clean your ears out. Oh, I don't like to hear that. I hope, well, if we were listening to Mr. Early, I would say you're going to go right to sleep. But it's the state, and she's a little bit more exciting than Mr. Early. But I do hope you feel better very, very soon and that you get some rest. Hey, hey Sharon. Puddletown's working overtime. You know what they say, Puddletown? All work and no play. But I understand, and all is well and forgiven. And All Man Can Love was just going to go into the archives. It's not going to be deleted because that song's too catchy. It's I like it. It's one of my favorites. Still might go to sleep with prosecutor female early. I don't think she's that. I think she's more fiery. I can't even read that, Gabby. I don't know. Makes Uncle Pud Pud a dull boy. Stop. Stop. Ooh. That might keep you awake, but will make you feel better. I hope. Oh. Yep. Why did that made me feel so uncomfortable? I know why. I can't go into it. Oh my. Some thoughts are better just uh, left in your own mind. That's where mine shall stay. Oh, wow. Okay. So today we are starting closing arguments. We are getting closer and closer to the end. And now that Danny T is here, we're ready to roll. What's up, Danny? How you doing? No, Puddletown does not make me uncomfortable. Wasn't anything about Puddletown. Nope. It was the way Gabby phrased that. Every time I read it, I think Carmen says it, and it makes me uncomfortable. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna crack it. Okay. All right. So, oh, your birthday's coming up. Well, hey, it's only Tuesday, so you should hopefully be better by Friday. And I don't know what number you're getting ready to turn, but it's okay. It will all be just fine, and just embrace that number and run with it. If you can't run, walk with it. That's what I have to do. Carmen, stop it. Anyway, Gabby, the torturers are among us tonight. So we are really seriously going to start closing arguments. We're starting with the state. We'll do the states tonight. We'll do the defense tomorrow because he only gets one bite of the apple. So his is almost 2 hours. Hers is just over an hour. I was hoping she was going to get the mannequins back out just for fun, but I don't see them anywhere. And maybe she will in rebuttal, but I don't think so. So, hey, you made it. Hello, Michael Green, chili chicken. You for seriously, who are you, Shakespeare? You say that? I don't know. You're turning 29, but regardless, I'm going out for the weekend with my sister. Good for you. Like I said, just embrace it. It's all good. It's all good. The older you get, you won't care so much. I remember when I turned 21, I cried because I thought I was going to have wrinkles like that day. Ridiculous, right? She did get me, Sharon. But in all fairness to her, she did not know that reading that made me feel weird and uncomfortable. But now she does. So she can add that to the arsenal of things that she has for me, like vehicle and those things, other things. You are not the only vintage person here. If you're 25 and older, you are vintage. I'm sorry. We learned that one day because Flashman was making fun of me because I am 52. I had to make I don't ever know how old I am. It's whatever. You'll forget. You won't care. As as they each rolls by, you'll just be happy you made it through another year. All right, let's do this thing, shall we? Your past double vintage. Yep. Me too. You're good company. I guess I'm a good company. I guess so. You're pretty sure the day you turn 30, you start cracking and popping every 2 seconds? Could be. Could be. But you never know until you turn 30. Yeah, 52 is just 25 reverse flash fan. Yep, you're in good company. And you're in great company. We'll be waiting here for you, Danny, when you get here. It's really just fine. What's up, Zach? How you doing? I don't know. I was talking to her on the phone and her electricity went out, so she might be sitting in the dark. I don't know. Because, yeah, she might pop in if they have power. I have no idea. Hey, Tink, how you doing? I haven't seen you. Good to see you. Danny, we're all boomers to Flash fan, even though we're not technically boomers. All right, I'm push and play. Let's get the steak going. And let me know the sound is good. I've got her boosted just a touch. I think we should be okay with her. If I have to, I'll bump her down a notch. But I think we're good. And we have closed captioning, so yay.
Matter of the people of the state of California versus Elizabeth Broderick. The court finds all members of the jury panel are present. All counsel are present. Mrs. Broderick is present. As I stated to you last Monday, ladies and gentlemen, at this time we're going to have the closing statements of the attorneys. The district attorney goes first because the district attorney has the burden of proof. Once they've given their closing statement to you, the defense has an opportunity to give a rebuttal argument. At the completion of their rebuttal argument, the people get one final opportunity to rebut whatever is said by the defense attorney. At the conclusion of that, I'll be giving you instructions as to the law that applies in this case. You'll then retire to deliberate.
I believe that we agree with one more stipulation.
All right, go ahead.
One of the stipulation would be that during the last trial of Elizabeth Broderick during 1990, the defendant testified the week of October 30th, 1990 through November 2nd, 1990. After each day of testimony, it would take approximately 45 minutes to bring the defendant to the first floor holding tank of the Superior Court. She would stay there waiting for the Las Colinas transportation bus at the end of the court day, which transported all female prisoners back to Las Colinas. The court recessed on 10/30/90 at 4:30 p.m., on 10/31/90 at 4:23 p.m., on 11/1/90 at 4:25 p.m., and 11/2/90 at 12:03 p.m.
So stipulate?
Yes, sir.
Set the stipulation. May I proceed, Ms. Wells?
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Morning. I wanted to start off by thanking all of you for being jurors in this case, which has unquestionably taken a significant sacrifice out of your personal lives to be here and to be involved in this process, which has been a long process. We could not have the best system of justice in this world if we didn't have citizens like you who are willing to give us your time and effort. And I think that you all ought to be, frankly, proud of yourself for being here and know that we appreciate your efforts. You all have a job to do now, or at least you will when we stop talking at you. It is obviously a very important job. It is important to the defendant. It's important to the victims, in this case, to their families and to their friends. It's important to this community. It is also a very specific job. Your job is to decide the legal culpability of Elizabeth Broderick's conduct on November the 5th, 1989, and that's it. There has been a lot of evidence that you've heard about all sorts of things that I told you were going to hear about during opening statements, and that frankly the defense would like you to get very distracted with. But you have the obligation to focus on the reason that you're here. You are not here to pass moral judgments on the people that are involved. You are not here to be psychologists and decide what made Elizabeth Broderick the person that she is, or what makes her the person that she is, or why Elizabeth Broderick committed these murders. The question for you is simply, did Elizabeth Broderick commit these murders? And the answer to that question, based on everything that you've heard from no matter what the source, is absolutely yes. Elizabeth Broderick took a loaded gun and blew 2 people away who were lying helpless in their sleep. And having a system of laws that prides ourselves in applying to everyone across the board isn't going to mean a heck of a lot unless she's held responsible for that. What's important for all of you to realize, and I don't mean to insult your intelligence by saying this, but people always have reasons for committing crimes. Always. They never just happen out of the blue. Nobody kills somebody else because they're ecstatically happy and everything is going wonderfully in their life. It doesn't happen that way. It's a given in any murder that there's a reason, that there's a history, that there's a background, that there's anger, that things are not going the way they want them to. That's when murders occur. Our society, and by the way, don't think for a minute that our system of law is not a compassionate system. We have the most compassionate system in the world. And when it comes time to deciding what should happen to someone who's been convicted of a crime, there is every opportunity for that compassion to click in if it's appropriate. But that doesn't mean that we don't demand, and we haven't always demanded, that people be held legally responsible for their actions. Because the fact of the matter is, there are lots and lots and lots of people out there who are angry, who are depressed, who are filled with hate, and maybe justifiably so, and they don't make the choice to prey on other people to solve their problems. And that's what this case is about. No matter how you might feel emotionally about Elizabeth Broderick, for the fact that at some point along the line, her life obviously didn't turn out the way she wanted, the way she had planned, the way she felt she deserved, which is a situation that happens every day, everywhere, to many, many people. The fact of the matter is that she's the one who made the choices on how to deal with it. She's the one who chose to forego the options of making something positive out of her life and out of all of the things she had. She's the one who chose, and everyone who knew her saw this, not to build herself up, but to tear Dan and Linda Broderick down. She had the right to make those choices. People have the right to make choices, but they also have to pay the consequences for the choices they make. Before I go any further and talk about the facts of the case, the facts that prove the defendant's guilt, I want to first talk to you a little bit about the law that applies, because it's important. You are going to be hearing a whole set of instructions from the judge when we're done arguing. And listening to those for the first time, I think sometimes sounds kind of overwhelming. But it's really not as complicated as it sounds, and I'd like to try and simplify it a little bit for you. We talked a little bit about, in jury selection, about the fact that all crimes are made up of certain elements. Excuse me. I'm still fighting my cold. There's a certain act that's required, and there's a certain mental state that's also required. Basically, 2 elements in any crime, and theft is a good example we talked about. If someone takes someone else's property, they've committed the act. Not necessarily a crime if they thought it was theirs, but if they knew it wasn't theirs, if they knew they didn't have a right to it, if they intended to keep it, then they've committed a theft. And as far as the specific issue for jurors to decide, it doesn't matter what their reasons were for committing it. It doesn't matter whether they were stealing because they were greedy or they were stealing because they wanted to put food on the table for their children. The fact of the matter is they stole. And under the law, that's a crime. And under the law, that's what jurors decide. Now, you might think that the crime of murder, because it's obviously a serious, maybe the most serious crime, would have all sorts of complex elements, but it doesn't. The crime of murder is actually very similar to the crime of theft. It has only 3 elements. The unlawful killing of a human being with malice aforethought. Basically, those first 2 elements are the act, the unlawful killing of a human being. The second element, malice aforethought, is the mental state. Most cases have certain things that are an issue and certain things that aren't. There is no issue with respect to the first 2 elements of this crime here, the unlawful killing of 2 people. Not in this case. There's no question that Elizabeth Broderick is the one who broke into Dan and Linda Broderick's home and took a loaded gun, and with that loaded gun and with her own hands shot and killed them. This is not what you might call a whodunit case. The only issue that she's denying, because it's the only one she can, is with respect to that third element, the mental element, malice aforethought. Well, what do we mean by malice aforethought? Aforethought is real easy. It just means before rather than after. There's no big deal about that, and there's no issue about that. But with respect to the definition of malice, what we mean by malice, this is an area where the law may be a little different than what we think of generally with respect to terms. We generally think of malice the way that Webster's defines it, as hatred, ill will, spite. That's what malice means. But legal malice is a term of art. It means something very specific. There are 2 kinds of malice. It can be either express or implied. And the instruction that you're going to hear says that malice is express when there is manifested an intent to kill. And what that means is if someone kills someone else and the circumstances are such that it's clear that they wanted to kill them, then they're acting with express malice. Killing someone with the intent to kill. It's like stealing something with the intent to steal. And absent some specific defense, such as self-defense, that justifies that killing, that's acting with express malice, and that's murder. There's no requirement that you actually hated the person that you killed or feel any particular way about them. The instruction that you'll hear says, the mental state constituting malice aforethought does not necessarily require any ill will or hatred of the person killed. An example of that might be, for example, a mercy killing. Obviously not at issue at this case. In this state, people don't have the right to make those kinds of choices for other people. And if they kill someone under those circumstances, it's killing with legal malice, and it's against the law, it's murder. There is also another type of malice, and that's implied malice. There are some circumstances under the law where the law says we're going to hold someone responsible for murder, even if they didn't actually intend to kill. And that's what we call implied malice. The instruction reads, malice is implied when the killing resulted from an intentional act, the natural consequences of the act are dangerous to human life, and the act was deliberately performed with knowledge of the danger to and with conscious disregard for human life. What does that mean? For example, if you have a bunch of men, young men, driving around in a car, and one of them has a gun, and to show all the other ones how macho he is or how brave he is, he takes that gun and he shoots into the window of a house as they drive by shooting. Unfortunately, if there's a woman in that house who's sitting there watching TV and she's hit by that bullet and killed, that young man is guilty of murder. He's acting with implied malice, even though he didn't know that woman from Adam, even though he didn't know for sure there was anybody inside that house, even though he specifically did not intend to kill anybody. He may feel tremendously remorseful after having done that. Under those circumstances, the law is going to imply malice because he certainly knew that it was likely someone would be in that house. Houses are filled with people, and shooting a bullet in there was dangerous, and he went ahead and did it anyway. That's implied malice. That's murder. Another example, based on an actual case. I think we talked a little bit about this in voir dire, is the young woman who decided to stand on the freeway overpass and throw bricks down on the cars passing by. She didn't want to kill anyone. She just wanted to scare people. She wanted to create a commotion. She wanted to get some attention. Actually, as it turned out, she was depressed. Well, one of those bricks plunged into the windshield of a car and hit a man, and it caused an accident and killed 2 people. She was guilty of murder. That's implied malice. You cannot do dangerous things like that and expect to not be held responsible when a likely result occurs. What kind of malice do we have in this case? There is no question that Elizabeth Broderick killed Dan and Linda Broderick with express malice. There was manifested, absolutely manifested, an intent to kill them at the time she unloaded that gun into their bodies. And we're not talking right now about premeditation or what she was thinking about before or what degree of murder this is. The question with respect to simply the crime of murder deals with what her intent was at the time she actually fired that gun. And ladies and gentlemen, you do not point a .38 caliber gun that you know is loaded with hollow point bullets at 2 people who are only inches away from you and start shooting unless you intend to kill them. This is not a water pistol, and she knew it. She was not shooting blanks, and she knew it. She was not aiming up into the air to scare them. She intentionally fired that gun at 2 people. And it doesn't matter what she was thinking about at any time before or at any time after. At the time she shot them, she had made the choice to shoot them. Even their own witness, the defense witness, Manny Lopez, the officer from the Border Patrol Task Force, he said that there's no question when you get to the point of pointing a gun at somebody and shooting, you are intending to, and his quote was, eliminate the target. No one but Elizabeth Broderick caused that gun to be pointed at their bodies. No one but Elizabeth Broderick caused that trigger to be pulled, and pulled again, and pulled again, and pulled again, and pulled again. At that point, no matter what else she was thinking, she was intending to eliminate her targets, and her targets were Dan and Linda Broderick. No matter what else she wants to say to you now about what happened in that room that morning and what and why her reactions were what they were, the cold, hard facts of what actually happened in the room are indisputable. There is no getting around them. And there is no getting around the fact that that first shot into Linda was right through her chest as she lay flat on her back in her bed. If she had time to react at all to the defendant being in there pointing a gun at her, she sure as heck didn't have much. She was still lying there in the bed. She didn't have time to sit up. She didn't have time to dive off the bed. She didn't have time to do anything to protect herself. That gun was pointed at her heart. The trigger was pulled when it was pointed at her heart, and she could do nothing to protect her life. There is no getting around the fact that the defendant had to then change her aim, change her direction of pointing that gun in order to shoot Dan Broderick in the back. She had to shoot Linda in the bed. She had to point at Dan and shoot him in the back. If she had just closed her eyes and shot bang, 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 it would have all been in a cluster right there in the bed where Linda was lying, and the bullets weren't. There is no getting around the fact that after she shot Dan, she then shot at Linda again. Dan there had to have been enough time for him to have rolled off the bed. There had to have been enough time for her to have rolled into the position that she was in. She had to have changed her aim again from Linda to Dan to Linda again to accomplish that last shot into the back of Linda's head. She claims, I panicked and I shot. Even their own expert, Manny Lopez, again, when he was asked the question, was this a panic shooting? He said, no, this was not a panic shooting. He's seen panic shootings. A lot of officers have seen panic shootings, and the bullets go everywhere. This was simply good shooting, good, accurate shooting. And this was shooting by someone who had experience with guns. No matter what Elizabeth Broderick wants to say to you now, we know, for example, from Steve France, who had seen her practicing shooting back in 1986 at targets, that she knew how to shoot a gun. That's what drew his attention to her, was how good she was shooting. She was putting all those bullets right into the center cluster, the bullseye. He wasn't doing that. The point is, she knew how to handle a gun. She knew what to expect from shooting a gun. She knew that there was going to be a kick, and she controlled it to affect these shots. Even though she denies it now, along with many of her denials, she has bragged in the past about being a good shot. She bragged to Gail Forbes. Gail Forbes testified years before, when they were in Berkeley and driving by a shooting range, how she bragged about being a marksman when she was in college and winning awards for that. It's interesting that Maria Peralta, the woman who testified from the jail, said the same thing, that the defendant had bragged to her about being a marksman, about winning awards in college. I don't think that Gail Forbes and Maria Peralta had ever been able to get together to get those stories straight. She was saying the same thing. The defendant says, I just barely entered the room, which we know as a matter of fact is not true. She had to have come substantially into that room in order to make those shots, in order to get that shot that went through the wall. I just barely entered the room. Linda immediately yelled, call the police. Dan moved towards the phone and I flinched and shot. You're going to have to use your own common sense about which came first, their moving or her shooting. I submit that it's much more reasonable to assume that they didn't start moving until after she started shooting. You have to think about the circumstances there that morning. This was 5:30 in the morning on a Sunday morning. It was just barely dawn, not a heck of a lot of light. They had been out late the night before, by the testimony, having dinner, having drinks. They would have been sound asleep. Her simply walking into that room quietly, which is what she said, was not going to wake them up, was not going to wake them up to the point where Linda would have immediately yelled, call the police. People don't wake up from a dead sleep and respond instantaneously like that. She wouldn't have even had time to focus on what was going on. It just doesn't wash. Do not forget that this business about Linda yelling, call the police, was never testified to before by Elizabeth Broderick. And this is crucial. She had the exact same opportunity the last time she testified to describe what happened in that room. And there was not one word about anyone yelling, call the police. Wouldn't you think that was pretty important? I mean, that's basically why she's saying she shot them this time. Somehow she forgot to mention that last time. Somehow that's never been mentioned to anyone else during any of the interviews she's ever given about these killings, including Dr. DeFrancesco, who asked her specifically about it. The first time she ever said anything about anyone yelling, "Call the police," was when she said it to you here in this courtroom after having talked about this case for 2 years. She has embellished her story. She has tried to make it sound better because it wasn't quite good enough last time. She had to come up with something a little bit more to give her an excuse for shooting. Really, this whole issue, we'll talk about this issue, the whole issue.
What's up, Brandon? You about got past me. How are you? I hope you're doing well. You're doing better. And it is good to see you. What's up, Baker? Gabby doesn't need fixing. Gabby is just fine. Yeah, see, Baker, you're getting in trouble because you're not in bed. I'm not cold. Are you telling me I'm cold, Flashman? I am not cold. It's life. Not everything is prepackaged like it is at the store. Hello, Annabelle. How are you? Brandon, I don't like to hear. Well, I'm not hearing it, but I'm reading it, and I don't like to read that. You need to get better. Oh, Kelly coming in hot. Baker needs a spanking. If he was here, he'd say, "Oh my." I can't say it like him because I don't have a man voice. I didn't roast 3 pigs. Roasted 1. And the other 2 ended up on the table. Baker, I'm in bed, and Gabby is not fine. She is the devil's spawn. Wow, we. See? Oops, there it is. Oh, Kelly's going to get you, Baker. So you might want to check under the bed. Oh, well. Can't speak to who Baker knows or doesn't know. I'm not from Alabama. Not that there's anything wrong with Alabama, but that's not where I'm from. Oh, good grief. It is spicy. Y'all, we're in trouble because Mom's here. Carmen's the one that tells you all the tea on Gabby. That's true. Carmen would not do that. Liar, liar, plans for hire. I've never heard that one. Would YouTube not let you say pants on fire? It wouldn't let me say 2 pig. It wouldn't let me say 2 ended up on the table and 1 ended up roasted. Oh my. He better not be. And you better be nice to him, Zach, if he is. But he better not be. I want him to be better. It's an order. Let's go. Come on. Well, you know what, Adair? Had they abducted her, I would have sent them to your house because you just said you almost called me Betty. You know what will cheer up? Let's go. Brandon asked for a bonus colonoscopy with the big pipe. This seemed a big K. Well, I'm not betting on anything because I'm telling you, you have to get better. That's it. It's the only thing. That's the only acceptable thing. Period. Full stop. Oh no. No. Gary. Gary. Thank you for the $2 super chat, Gabby. Uncle Pud will be a dull boy. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. He won't even. I know, but he'll be like, I don't even know. All right. Carmen, all those jokes are for you. Obviously, we accept everyone here because you're here. Baker. Well, Carmen, you don't enjoy the colonoscopy. Well, what do I know? I don't understand women. I would say I'm not touching that. But then you'd be like, of course you're not. You're a woman. So much, Betty. Oh, we're moving on, Kelly. You're just park yourself. We've got more crazies coming. We've got more crazies. I'm not sure. I'm keeping an eye on one. I have one lined. I think I have one lined up, possibly, but I'm keeping an eye on one that's happening right now that I might do because it'll be shorter, and then move back to these. But I'm not sure yet. I've started today and I've just been kind of watching it. It's going to have to pick up. Or we're just going to be like, nope. Yep. She's had 3 hearings. Parole hearings already. Has been obviously denied 3 times. Do the one you're covering, I will have a stroke. I don't want to have a stroke. You have a 0.1% chance of surviving me streaming the rest of this. Oh, well, don't worry. It's almost over. Baker had 3.14 strokes today. Thanks, Adair. That makes up for you almost calling me Betty. Good to go. Whoop. You don't have a stroke either. Baker had a serial killer's granddaughter in chat today. Did they find you? Oh, that's why I'm scared of that happening. That's why I hear those stories and I am really scared of somebody like Betty's kids popping into my chat. It's almost over, so I'm pretty sure I'm good. I'm being like, you're horrible, or you're great, or we don't like you, or we like you. I don't know. Probably won't be the we like you. Well, Flash fan, then the aliens will be sent to your house. I got the golf joke. Lori's gonna show up in the chat. Which Lori? this lifetime, that lifetime, next lifetime? Is she going to be Lori? Is she going to be a zombie? Is she going to be, what's she called? Not transcended. Whatever she does. I don't know. All right. We've been derailed a little bit, which is fine. But I'm going to hit play to get back to this thing. Whatever.
I submit is really academic. Even if Linda had yelled, call the police. Even if Dan did roll and try to reach for the phone, even assuming that's true. How does that in any way excuse her conduct in shooting them? What did she expect them to do? I mean, when they're awakened in the dark to see that someone has broken into their home and is standing over them, pointing a gun at them, what does she expect them to do? That's like a robber who goes up and puts a gun in somebody's face and says, give me your money. And the victim yells, help, and he shoots and kills them. And then he says, but gosh, it wasn't my fault. They yelled help. Is that what she's saying? It's not my fault I shot them. When they saw me pointing a gun at them, they tried to run for cover and yell help. How does that excuse her conduct? Even if they did move in response to seeing her there in the room, what did they do? The only thing they did was move away from her to try to get cover, help. There was no lunging at her. There was no throwing anything at her. There was no grabbing any weapons. There was no threatening to hurt her. Nothing. Even assuming the truth of her testimony, they tried to get away and she shot them in the back. That is murder. What about the rest of her story about what happened that morning? She says she was just going to confront them. I was just going to have it out with them, and if they weren't going to give me the kids, I was going to kill myself. Well, first of all, there is no way that she had any real expectation of truly having some fruitful conversation with Dan Broderick that morning. I mean, think about that. She knew he wasn't going to talk to her under those circumstances. She knew, it's undisputed, that he hadn't wanted to talk to her under normal circumstances for years, let alone being awakened at 5:30 in the morning in bed with his wife, with her standing over him pointing a gun. No way. If she really wanted to confront them, that's what she says, why didn't she confront them? This woman knows how to confront when she wants to, ladies and gentlemen. She has done it many times before, and the threat of him calling the police never stopped her before. Her own testimony about the last alleged confrontation that they had, which was way back in 1988, a whole year before, she described an incident where she went over to the house to talk to him. He was out in the front, he was gardening. He told her to leave or I'm going to call the police. And she said, go ahead, I'm not leaving. She basically called his bluff and he backed off. He didn't call the police. He said, okay, nothing happened. She wasn't arrested. That was the last experience she'd had with him in that regard. Why was there some reason to expect anything different this time? Especially given the fact that she's got a gun this time. She's the one who unquestionably had control over that confrontation. Why did she sneak into the back room of that bedroom? That was never explained by her. She claimed she went into the back door of the house because she didn't want to give them a chance to hear her coming and call the police because she wanted to have this confrontation. But she never explained why she went this circuitous route to get into that bedroom, why she went down the hallway and through the TV room and in that back door. If she wanted to confront them, once she got into the house, once she got up to the top of the stairs, there's the door to the bedroom. Why didn't she walk into the bedroom and confront them? That's what somebody bent on a confrontation would do. And even if they did move, she's got the gun. All she has to do is say, hold it, don't move, we're gonna talk. She said she brought the gun for a show of force, to make them listen to her, do what she wanted. Well, why didn't she use it for a show of force then? If she had truly wanted a confrontation, she would have had it. She didn't. If she had truly wanted to commit suicide when she didn't get what she wanted, she would have. She didn't. If they were diving for the phone and yelling, call the police, they obviously were not in a listening or negotiating posture, and she knew that, but that gun never got pointed at her. It only got pointed at them, and it got pointed at them immediately. The truth is, she never intended to commit suicide that morning. Maybe she's threatened that before in the past, but somehow it never happens. And it certainly wasn't going to happen then. She said that morning to Kim, that morning when she called and talked to Kim in Arizona, she said, it was either him or me, and I couldn't let him win. That's a pretty definite statement of intending to kill someone. I couldn't let him win. If she had killed herself, he would have won. Dan and Linda would have won. They would have had themselves. They would have had their happiness. They would have had their kids. They wouldn't have her around bugging them anymore. And they'd be able to say, see, she was crazy, which the thought of drove her extremely angry. She hated the thought of them calling her crazy. There was no way she was going to give them the satisfaction of that. And she even specifically said that. She told Amy Wallace, a reporter. She wrote in her book. She wrote in her letters. She had sworn to herself she would never give them that satisfaction. No matter how much talk there is about her being depressed over this period of time, which I don't really think there's any dispute about, the fact is that there is no evidence, none, all the way from 1985 to 1989, that she ever made any attempt to commit suicide or even a gesture. Never. There is no evidence that she ever wrote anything, and she does a lot of writing about wanting to kill herself. She never wrote anything about it. She never told anyone, I'm so unhappy, I want to kill myself. What she said over and over and over was, I'm so unhappy, I want to kill Dan and Linda because they're the ones that made me this way. If by some chance there might be some tiny speck of doubt about what her intent was when she shot them that morning, that speck has got to completely disappear when you look at what she did immediately after shooting them. After she unloaded the gun, she knew exactly what she'd done. And whether you believe the testimony that she gave at the trial last time, that she heard all 5 shots, which is what she testified to, I heard the 5 shots and she banged them out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whether you believe that testimony or whether you believe her testimony here in this courtroom that I just heard one big explosion, the fact of the matter is she knew she'd fired her gun, and she knew she'd fired it at them. She saw Dan had fallen off the bed. She saw that Linda was obviously motionless on the bed. She even said to Lee that morning that she heard Dan say to her, okay, you shot me, I'm dead. If she hadn't hit them, they would have unquestionably been still moving. They would have been yelling. If Linda before had been yelling, call the police, after she'd shot those bullets, she would have been yelling. If she didn't have a bullet through her brain. Elizabeth Broderick didn't panic and run out of that room. She didn't go, oh my God, what have I done, and rush over them to see if they were okay. She walked around the bed and pulled the phone out of the wall. Actually, what appears to have happened is that she walked around the bed either to make sure that she had shot Dan or to maybe say some final word to him. And that's when she saw him reaching for the phone, when he was down on the ground there reaching for the phone, because that's when she took her gun and hit him over the hand as he's reaching for the phone. That's what she told Dr. DeFrancesca. She hit him over the hand. She had to come all the way around the bed.
All right, these pictures are kind of graphic, and they show them. They don't they don't have any problems with them. So just be aware. I will make a banner because I didn't know she was going to pull those out. So, yeah. So just there you go. There it says your warning. They show all the pictures. Linda is on the bottom picture, and hers is more graphic than the picture on the top. So there you go. Yeah, Lavi, she it was pretty bad. Pretty bad. I don't know, Carmen. Have to ask the state that. Yep. Kinda. It's that last part. Zach, not nice. Not nice. They just don't show these anymore, Jared. That's just why I didn't want anybody to be shocked if they hadn't seen them. That's all.
Walk. There's not a whole lot of room here to negotiate. Through here, this door there, and one is open. Come all the way around here. The phone is up here on the nightstand where Dan is reaching for it. She's standing right there, hitting him over the hand when he's reaching for the phone. That's when she heard him, although she denies making the statement now to Patty Monahan, that's when she heard him gurgling in his own blood. And ladies and gentlemen, that's exactly what he would have been doing, gurgling in his own blood as she's hitting him. And when she realized that he was obviously injured, but not dead, that's when she pulled the phone out of the wall. This is not panicked conduct. This is intentional, calculated, deliberate, incredibly cold conduct. There is no question she was thinking about her goal, and she was acting to accomplish that goal. She wanted them to die. And she told Lee, her daughter, that morning, she intentionally pulled that phone out so he couldn't save himself. That is acting with express malice.
I know.
It's actually pretty hard to imagine anyone acting with any more malice, either in the legal or the lay sense, than Elizabeth Broderick. The important thing to realize, or the interesting thing maybe to realize, is that even if you set aside the issue of whether or not she was acting with express malice, with the express intent to kill, even if you accept everything that she says is true, even if you don't doubt her credibility whatsoever, you buy the entire story, she has still, by her own testimony, admitted killing two people with implied malice. You don't have to necessarily buy the express malice. There's implied malice here without question. The fact is that she's the one, and this is undisputed, who intentionally chose to go over to their house that morning. She had lots of other choices. In fact, she testified she'd even specifically contemplated other choices. She could have gone down to the beach to take her walk like she contemplated. She made the choice not to. She could have gone into the other room and talked to Brad Wright, who was there in her house, to talk about what was going on. She could have called her friend Ronnie Brown, who went on walks with her early in the morning lots of times, to talk about what was going on. She could have called her attorney to say, hey, what's going on here? What are we going to do about this? She chose to go over to their house seeking a confrontation. She chose, and this is undisputed, she admits, she chose to take a gun with her in order to have that confrontation. She chose, and she admits, that she knew the gun was loaded. She admits she knew she wasn't supposed to be there in their house. She had no right to be there. She was committing a crime just by breaking in there. She admits that she specifically chose to take that gun out of her car and take that loaded gun into the house and into the room to make sure that they do what she wanted them to do.
Who did she just glare at in the gallery? Felt like somebody was talking and she just turned. I don't know if one of Betty's daughters are there. I don't know. Wow. Flashman, I did see the picture of them. I saw the picture. I can't spit the words out, apparently. I was the first one to heart it this morning, but it was early. And you were either still awake or up early. And I didn't want to bother you because you say notifications go off sometimes. So I was just like, I'll just heart it. Maybe that won't be a notification. It's not a turtleneck because it is a button down, and I don't know what it's called. High collar? I don't know. Early 90s fashion, 80s, something that was just stray from the 80s. I don't know. I will not say about said. I will not say vehicle as I said vehicle. A bishop's collar or something? That could be. I have no idea. I really don't know. Yes, like a high top sneaker. I'm glad you'll accept it. Oh, she was in your cartoon. Oh, that makes it even worse. But yeah, she just glared at somebody in the back. I heard somebody talking. I don't know, but Judge must not have heard them. It was a good picture, Flashman.
Whether you believe her when she said she just wanted to confront them or not, the fact is, the undisputed facts are that they were in their own home, minding their own business, lying in their own bed, sound asleep, when she broke into their house, when she snuck into their room, and when she started shooting. They ended up dead, and she walked away. Even accepting everything she says as true, the law does not allow people to charge into other people's homes with loaded guns to confront them, catch them totally off guard, helpless and defenseless, kill them both, and then say, but gosh, I really didn't mean to. This is certainly much more egregious and intentional conduct than throwing bricks off an overpass or even doing a drive-by shooting. This is murder. What I've been talking about so far is the crime of murder, simply the crime of murder. The starting point of all murder is second-degree murder. There are only 2 degrees, first degree and second degree. If it's not first, it's second. Everything's second. If it doesn't come within one of the definitions of first-degree murder. And that's the only issue for you all in this case. Is this first-degree or second-degree murder? The law provides that there are certain types of murder that are first degree, basically based on the manner in which they're committed. And this is just
All right. That is her daughter. She testified first for the state. I don't know why I get it. Is her name Kelly? Because I always want to call her Kelly or Michelle. I don't know why. Lee's name I can remember, but that one I can't. I get, like, that's her mom who unalived her dad. Why is she just, like, look so pissed? Oh, Danny. We went to Kim. That's right. Thanks, Flash Fan. Kim, Kelly, whatever. We went to, my parents lived out in California for a little while, and we went to see them over Christmas one year. So we left Indiana, and it was snowing. It was freaking cold. We got to California, and it was 60 degrees or something like that. And we got out. It was like, oh my gosh, it's heaven. And there was a lady sitting at the airport. I'm in full parka, mitten. I mean, big, like what you probably might need in Utah if you went skiing or something. But we were like, well, it's not that cold. We can show you cold. Like we're below zero at home. So yeah, it's just that's funny. Yes, Kim, Kelly, Michelle. I don't know. Well, you should remember that. You were there. Well, see, your aunt's name's Kim. I don't have one of those. But Kim looks mighty irritated. And now I'll think her name is Sarah. Thanks, Gabby.
a matter of law. These are just some examples. They're not all of the examples. But if you commit a murder by using a bomb, it's first degree. If you commit a murder by using armor-piercing ammunition, it's first degree. If that young man who did the drive-by shooting had used armor-piercing ammunition, everything else being the same, it's first-degree murder under the law. Lying in wait, if you use poison, if it's deliberate and premeditated, during the commission of certain crimes, robbery, burglary, rape, if a young man breaks into a house to commit a burglary, he doesn't want to kill anybody. He wants to steal a television set. But maybe he's confronted by the occupant. He's scared. There's an altercation. He pushes the man. The man falls and hits his head on a brick and dies. That's first-degree murder, even though he had no intent to kill him, as a matter of law. Elizabeth Broderick committed first-degree murder. Absolutely. Because under the law, this was willful, deliberate, and premeditated. I don't really think that there's too much here that you wouldn't expect on what the definitions of these things are. Willful means intentional. Deliberate means after careful thought and weighing of considerations. And premeditation means considered beforehand. It's the same thing as aforethought, before as opposed to after. The law is real clear that there is no set time that's required for a killing to be deliberate and premeditated. There's no requirement that it be thought about for 1 minute or 5 minutes or a half hour or a day or 2 weeks. The instruction that you'll hear says, the law does not undertake to measure in units of time the length of the period during which the thought must be pondered before it can ripen into an intent to kill, which is truly deliberate and premeditated. The time will vary with differing individuals and under varying circumstances. The true test is not the duration of time, but rather the extent of the reflection. A cold, calculated judgment and decision may be arrived at in a short period of time, but a mere unconsidered and rash impulse is not such deliberation and premeditation as would make the crime first-degree murder. So the question is, was this a decision based on reflection and thought, or was it a rash impulse? That's the question. Elizabeth Broderick's decision that morning was unquestionably a considered decision. She had been considering killing these two people, thinking about killing these two people, maybe not seriously, but absolutely thinking about it for years. And that's what makes it the exact opposite of a rash impulse. A rash impulse is something that happens when all of a sudden you're presented with a situation that you weren't expecting, that catches you totally off guard. You just react. You don't think about it. You don't have time to think about it. You react immediately. That's what a rash impulse is. For example, not really dealing with the facts of this case, but you might have a guy in a bar who's maybe had a few drinks, maybe had a bad day, and some other guy starts flirting with his girlfriend. And he gets angry and he tells him to cut it out. And the other guy says, pound sand, maybe calls him a couple of bad names, calls his girlfriend a couple of bad names. And the guy just explodes. And he grabs a mug of beer and he smashes him over the head and kills him. That's murder. But it's not premeditated murder. He wasn't thinking about killing that guy before he went into the bar that night. He didn't even know him. He wasn't thinking about doing it until the immediate instant that he picked up the mug and did it. What occurred here is not even close to that kind of situation. She had been
Brandon. I would never grift off you, my friend. Never, never. And if you didn't get the memo, Brandon, I'm worse than Dan. So I might grift off you. But you have been ordered to not be on that list. And in a while, that was funny. Oh, he knows, Flashman. I watched it, Carmen. I was watching it. She's close. She'll get it. Called me a grifter, and I'm worse than Dan. It's okay, but Brandon, no, I just won't accept that from you. So that's it. You have to listen to me. You have no choice.
doing an incredible amount of thinking about killing these two people for years. These two people who she hated so badly.
Here. Wow, thank you, Brandon, so much. Here, have a Kofe. What do doctors know that you don't? I don't know. They apparently don't know that that's just not acceptable. So, do you want me to yell at them? I will. I'll send Gabby to yell at them. Because I'll be very angry if you don't get better. And I'll be very sad. I mean, Gabby can make me feel uncomfortable with a joke. She's good at it, but she doesn't. She likes me, so she doesn't want to make me feel uncomfortable. Not saying you don't like me. I just think you like to make me feel uncomfortable a little bit more than Gabby does. Does that make sense? Probably not. because I don't even know what I'm trying to say. Just because I'm worried about you, Brandon, and I just want you to be better. That's it. I'll say it over and over and over. Like, who's gonna do the effing swole jokes on Baker? Who's gonna tell him those? There's nobody there to do it. Yes, and also if you want yelled at, you get Gabby. If you want a response in 3 months, Carmen will be there eventually. But I'm somewhere in the middle. I don't yell a lot. I can. I don't like to. Yep. Gabby, I don't know where Lesko is in the United States or if he's in the United States, but if he isn't, I could send someone down there to talk to the doctor about it. Brian, thank you. Here's your copay. I have a better health plan. Well, Bri, if you know where Brandon is and his doctors, tell them to make him better. I have never yelled at you. That is a lie, lie, lie. That is not true. All right. We got some science fair poster board coming up. That's a lot. She got an A on that one.
These are just some of the many sorts of statements and things that she had been saying over the years. I mean, starting off with her statement to Gail Forbes way back in 1985 when they first separated, that life would be better if I just killed Dan. That was probably, back there in 1985 when they just separated, that was probably just an expression of anger and hurt and being upset. But that became a very repeated theme for her, that life would be better for her if he were dead. She said the same thing to Danny in that taped conversation that you heard. And that's a tape that you might want to listen to again. Because she tells Danny, I wish he'd just die. I wish he'd just get drunk and drive off the road. Then we'd all be happy. She couldn't be happy knowing that he was out there living his life and knowing that he was living it with someone else, with Linda. She directly admits that in one of those messages that you heard on the machine, where she says, I close my eyes and I see you and Linda doing all your wonderful things, and you're gonna be so sorry. She couldn't stand the thought of them doing things together, and she was gonna make them sorry. Those messages that you've heard, which, by the way, most of them had nothing to do with the children and getting in touch with the children. They're relevant not just because they show the extent of her anger towards Dan and the extent of her hate to Linda, but they give you a feel for the fact that this woman was not a passive, submissive, beaten down woman. This woman, when you listen to those messages, is absolutely in control. She's in control, she's demanding, she's angry, she's vengeful. She talks about being so upset because Dan had so much control over her. She says that a lot. Well, you've heard those messages, and again, you might want to listen to them again. You saw her testify. I submit to you that no one controls this woman. No one, not even her own attorney. She says and does what she wants when she wants. She always has, and she always will. She claims she was so afraid of Dan. I was terrorized by him, she says. If you're truly afraid of something or someone, you run the other way, you stay away, you don't continually bang them on the head. That makes no sense. And that's what she was doing. A woman who is truly afraid of what her ex-husband, for example, might do, does not intentionally aggravate him, does not intentionally taunt him, does not intentionally demand that he do things now or else, does not express glee over publicly embarrassing him, does not threaten to kill him over and over. This is not a woman who was afraid. She's the one who said, in one of those messages, she says to Dan, Lily tells me you're afraid of me. You better damn well be afraid of me. And he was afraid of her. And as it turned out, he obviously had good reason. This anger, these threats were going on nonstop. According to the testimony of her children, in 1985, in 1986, in 1987. In 1987, she's telling Ruth Roth things like, I won't be the single mother of 4 children. He'll die first. Not, I'll die if I don't get my children, but he'll die if I have to take responsibility for them so that he can go on and be happy. The primary thing going on there was not depression in the sense that she wants to have you believe, in the sense that it was somehow making her dysfunctional. The primary emotion was anger and rage. Dr. Roth said that Elizabeth Broderick was probably the angriest woman she'd ever met. And she had met and worked with thousands of people going through divorces. Many, many, many of which were in situations every bit as bad or difficult or worse than Elizabeth Broderick. This was 2 years after separation in 1987, and she is still saying things like, and this is a quote, that little fucker was mine and he'll stay mine. She was still refusing to accept he wasn't hers anymore and doing everything she could to make him pay for it. That was in March of 1987 with Dr. Roth. She was still refusing to take the children in December of 1987, claiming she didn't have enough money. That was the same time when she was spending hundreds and thousands of dollars shopping at Saks and Nordstrom's and Robinson's and I-Magnin. Any mother who truly wanted her children would not let a shopping spree at Nordstrom's stand in her way. Her priorities were clear, and it was making life difficult for Dan and Linda. That was in 1987. What about 1988? That's when she's writing in her diary. There is no better reason in the world for someone to kill than to protect their home, possessions, and family from attack and destruction. You have attacked and destroyed me, my home, my possessions, and my family. You continue to repeatedly attack and steal and destroy. You are the sickest person alive. A law degree does not give you license to kill and destroy, nor does it give you immunity from punishment. No one will mourn you. This doesn't say there is no better reason in the world to hate or to be angry or to take you to the cleaners in court or to make your kids hate you or just to make your life miserable. This says there is no better reason in the world to kill. And no one will mourn you. This is a direct and specific deliberation over an act of killing. She's thinking about the reasons for doing it, and she's thinking about what she thinks the consequences are going to be. No one will mourn him. And that comment, that no one will mourn you, is interesting in the context of her anger after she kills them when she finds out that people are mourning them. Her comment to Amy Wallace, a reporter, was she was tired of hearing people mourn Dan and Linda. It always makes me mad when people call them the victims. She'd previously thought about this, and as far as she was concerned, people weren't supposed to mourn them, and they were, and she was angry about it. This claim that she was upset, that she never got to tell anyone afterwards how sorry she was, is incredible. It's a lie. Nothing prevented her from doing that. Nothing. She wrote letters to hundreds of people. She gave interviews to dozens of newspaper reporters. She probably made thousands of phone calls, and not once did she make any effort to tell anybody she was sorry. The most recent statement that she made in October of this year to People magazine was that she had no remorse. I won't accept the blame for what happened. I didn't have the affair. She is saying that to you because she's playing her audience. She's doing exactly what Dr. Dietz says she does. She plays to her audience. She knows what she has to say to get the intended result. And she's hoping that by saying that, one of you is going to feel you should excuse her for her responsibility in these acts. And don't you think the most important people in the world for her to have said anything about being sorry for these killings would have been her children? She never told Kim she was sorry for killing her father, a father that she knew Kim adored. She told Kim in that conversation from jail, I did it for you. That was basically what she said. I did it for you. He was making you so unhappy. He wasn't paying for college. Talk about laying a guilt trip on a child for the rest of her life. I killed your father for you? In late 1988, she wrote a letter to Dr. Dess. Dr. Dess was the psychiatrist or psychologist who testified at the divorce trial and made a recommendation that she should not have custody of the kids. And she was angry about that. And you'll see that letter. It was referred to by Dr. Dietz. It's a very interesting letter. You can feel when you read it her absolute rage and anger. And it's directed not only then at Dan, but at Dr. Dess, because he's had the nerve to go against her, to make a recommendation against her, to suggest that at that point she was not the perfect mother. It's filled with the exaggeration and the histrionics and the anger. One of the statements that she makes in that letter, Mr. Broderick did not become what he is because he was married to a whiny weakling of a wife. He knew what I could do for him. He knew I was a better, stronger person than he. This is a quote. He picked the right girl to marry, but he picked the wrong girl to. She's gonna get him back. That's what she's saying. He picked the wrong girl to mess with. Even her own witnesses, some of the witnesses that the defense put on, Melanie Coors, who was the interior decorator that knew her, testified how angry and frustrated she was because she wanted to get him back and couldn't figure out a way to do it. Another defense witness, Vanjie Burt, the woman who testified that she hadn't seen the defendant for a while. She saw her in the summer of 1989 before these killings and described how she was still filled with hate and said, I'll get his ass yet. Hate and revenge. In 1989, after the judgment, the divorce judgment, she wasn't just talking in generalities anymore. She wasn't just crossing pictures out of family pictures. She wasn't just defacing other pictures. She wasn't just vandalizing his property. She wasn't just writing about murder as a likely result when you don't get what you want in a divorce. She was getting much more specific. She did buy a gun in March of 1989, the month before the wedding. She's got several reasons for that now. I submit that it's interesting that there was no evidence presented, no evidence that she ever told anyone about those reasons back then when she bought the gun. She claimed something about being upset because the house had been burglarized, being upset because a boy that Kim was dating, Tom, was making threats. Interestingly enough, Kim would not have even been home at that time. She was away at school. in March of '89. She didn't get back until May. Not one witness corroborated that she told them about these concerns for her personal safety to the extent that she felt she needed to buy a gun back then when she did it. In fact, Brad Wright testified that she told him she bought the gun because shooting was a hobby. Don't you think if she was concerned about her safety to the extent she felt she had to buy a gun to protect herself, that she would have told Brad Wright that? Actually, the day she bought the gun was the day that she had learned that Linda had tried to retrieve the wedding list that had been stolen, that she'd been brought back into court that day, and she was extremely angry about that. In order to return the list, she was humiliated by the court by being ordered to return the list. And when after being angry and humiliated about what was going on and thinking about and realizing the wedding was coming up, that day she left court and she went to the gun store and she bought a gun. And that's exactly when she started telling people that she was going to use that gun to shoot Dan and Linda. She told Sylvia Cavins, one of the housekeepers, she was going to shoot him in the head at the wedding. Sylvia was concerned about that statement. It was not an idle threat like, I hate him, I want to kill him. She was concerned enough to tell Dan and Linda about it. Kim testified she threatened to kill him at the wedding all the time. She told Sylvia Cavins another time she was going to kill him, and when the jury heard her story, they'd let her off. She said the same thing to Kim and Lee. How the world would thank her if she killed Dan Broderick. That's thinking about the consequences, ladies and gentlemen, whether they're right or not, or reasonable or not, she's thinking about them. And the judge is going to tell you that a person doesn't have to meaningfully and maturely reflect about the consequences. All they have to do is think about them. And no matter what she says about those threats, she talks about like it was no big deal. They were taken very seriously. I mean, people don't go hire security guards for their wedding because some idle threats are being made. A friend does not set up a beeper system with someone else at the wedding because these are just idle little threats. She was concerned about Elizabeth Broderick's obsession over Dan and Linda and Dan and Linda getting married. She had taken the wedding list. She was obsessed about the details of the wedding. She was talking about engraving the date of the wedding on a watch that she bought. She refused to go out of town. People were definitely concerned. This woman was going to kill somebody. She says Dan wasn't even really concerned. He was just making a big deal out of it. He just was spreading rumors about me. Well, he made the very chillingly prophetic statement himself only a few months before at the divorce trial, when he said, I don't think there is any amount of money in this world that is going to be sufficient for you. You want me, you want my money, you want my death or my ruination in this community, you want me destroyed and over and done with, and unless and until that happens, you are not going to be happy. And he was right. After the wedding, she started putting the gun in her pocket when Dan would come over to pick up the boys. She admits that. Why did she do that? Not because she was afraid of Dan Broderick. I mean, all the evidence is, again, even from her, that he actively avoided her. He was afraid of her. He did everything he could to avoid contact. He would even stay out in front of the house and honk the horn so that the boys would come out so that he could avoid contact. Why is she putting that gun in her pocket? Why is she showing that gun to her son, Danny, as they're driving away and she's showing him she's got the gun? What she's hoping for is a confrontation. She's hoping he's going to do something, get angry at her, confront her, so she'll have an excuse to shoot him right then and there. And the problem was he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't confront her. He wouldn't give her the opportunity. And so she had to think of another way to do it. Over the summer and fall following the wedding, there wasn't much of an opportunity to do it. Dan and Linda first went on their honeymoon. She was gone the entire month of July to Canada. Then they went to Greece. Then she went to San Francisco. Then they went back east. Then they went to Notre Dame. Then she went to Acapulco. The weekend of November the 5th was probably the first weekend in months that both of them had been in town, and she had the children. It's also right in here during this time when she's saying things like what she said to Linda David, one of the housekeepers. I know Dan and Linda just want to be left alone, but that's not going to happen. I'm either going to make his life a living hell or I'm going to murder him. Linda David took that statement real seriously. It was very disturbing. It was not an idle threat. And right about this time, Kim's keys disappear one day when she's with her mother, a rather interesting coincidence. Also during this time, she's filed a motion for custody of the boys, and she's learned that Dan is seriously considering not fighting, giving her the boys. And that evidence is undisputed. Kathy Cafaro, his attorney's testimony is undisputed that that was his position. It's undisputed that he hadn't filed an opposition. Remember her statement to Ruth Roth, I'm not going to be the single mother of 4 kids. He'll die first. Well, she was just about to become the single mother of her kids. And deep down inside, she was just as infuriated by the thought that she'd end up being stuck taking care of these kids while he was free to go on and start a new family with Linda.
Thank you, June, for the 10 gifted memberships. That's awesome. Zach got one. Hippie Chick, Cuff You, Old Line Red, Megan J, Beth Works On, Benjamin Gray, View from the Porch, and Sweet Magnolia. Oh, and April Wilson all got memberships from June. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. All right, Carmen and Gabby. Not reading that one. Gabby sent a super sticker. Thanks, Gabby. It's a cute little wolf. And then Carmen sent a super chat. Here you go, Brandon. Sorry, it's a little short. Oh, Carmen. I don't know what to do with you. Who's Zach? I'm just going to say, Flash fan said that, Zach. There is there's not a lot of photos out there of them. I have one on, I think, a couple of my thumbnails. I don't think I have it on here. Yeah, thank you, Gabby. As I say, I know on the very last day, that thumbnail has a picture of Dan and Linda on there. Linda and Betty look very similar when Betty was younger. So, like I've said, Dan definitely had a type. The prosecutor is painting Plymouth hair as an evil woman. Well, when you have Plymouth hair, what else can you be? We are almost done. We got like 4 minutes.
She specifically complained about him starting a new family with several people. She complained about Linda leading her life, Linda being Mrs. Daniel T. Broderick, years after their separation. She complained about that to Helen Pickard the day before she killed her. She told P.J. Hathaway she was so angry at Dan she wanted to kill him the day before she killed him. The important thing you have to understand when you're dealing with the concept of premeditation and deliberation is that the actual decision to kill.
She's going to do it.
The actual decision to kill doesn't have to be made long before the actual killing.
Oh, she smiled. Okay, that was better.
The actual decision to kill does not have to be made long before the killing. It's not my position, for example, that when she bought the gun in March of 1989, or some specific time in September or October, that she decided on November 5th, I'm going to kill him. That's not what happened. I think it's pretty clear from the evidence that she didn't firmly make that decision until that weekend. She had been thinking about it for years. She had been seriously ruminating over it ever since she bought that gun. She had been formulating real possibilities ever since she lucked onto Kim's keys. And the circumstances fell into place that weekend. It's interesting that she admitted herself when she testified that she was upset because, in her view, Dan and Linda never suffered a moment through all those years that she had suffered. Well, she decided now it was their turn to suffer. She says it herself in that letter that she writes to Kathy
Holy crap,
Picaro
June.
sometime that weekend. She says,
June, thank you so much. Wow, $50. Thank you. You were very grateful for being out to sea for the first trial. Stationed out of California when this happened. Unfortunately, I was stationed again in San Diego for the second trial. Received a jury summons for this case and showed up in uniform and was excused. Do you still have your uniform? We all might want to borrow it sometime. I've only actually ever been, I got a jury summons once, but I had just moved out of the county. So they were like, yeah, never mind. And I never had another one. I don't know how many trials my little county has. Can't be that many. But thank you so much, June. That's awesome. But also, Ronnie, or whoever said that, Ronnie was right. We would be asking you all kinds of questions if you would have been on this jury. We would have been. I would just want to know, was Church Lady as sweet as she seems to be? Actually, that's not true. I would have questions. I was not on the Delphi jury. Flashman, in this state, depending on which side you were on, that could get me hurt. Just saying. Carmen, I showed up in uniform once too, was excused, works every time. Well, just did jury duty in June and July. Oh my. May, June, whatever. That's still. You know, there's a lot of division on that verdict and on that case and on that judge and on that trial. Just saying. You know. Alrighty. I really thought she was going to unalive somebody in that courtroom, but then she smiled, and she has a pretty smile. Like, she should smile more. Obviously not when she's talking about this stuff, but just in general. That is true. I was streaming during that time. I was not there. And I was actually streaming live when the verdicts came in. So I wasn't there. It's all good. I have you all as my witnesses.
I am really sick of being his victim. That was always her perception. No matter what, she was the victim. What she decided was, I'm not going to be his victim anymore. I'm going to make him mine. And she was all prepared. She had the gun. She had the keys. She had the bullets. She had the kids. They were home. The time was right. And she made them her victims. When you decide this case, You need to think about the facts that can't be ignored, no matter how much rationalization is thrown at you. The fact is that that morning, Dan and Linda weren't doing anything but sleeping in their own bed, in their own house. The fact is that it was Elizabeth Broderick, and only Elizabeth Broderick, who decided to go over to their house with a loaded gun, with killing on her mind. She was going to kill somebody, and hate in her heart. That it was Elizabeth Broderick who broke into their house when she knew she had absolutely no right to be there, and had all sorts of other options that morning. That it was Elizabeth Broderick who gave them absolutely no chance to respond, to talk, to tell her they'd give her what she wanted, to protect their lives, to plead for their lives. It was Elizabeth Broderick who shot them in the back, and left them for dead. It was Elizabeth Broderick who the very next day was describing to Dr. Robinson that she was happy and relieved. It's Elizabeth Broderick who's even bragged to Maria Peralta about what a good shot she'd been when she'd shot them. Ladies and gentlemen, if that isn't murder, I don't know what is.
I was just getting ready to ask if the judge was still alive. He hadn't moved. Flashman, I actually haven't heard anything. I haven't heard much about that trial. Well, I'd kind of quit hearing about that trial until the Hulu released the docuseries on there, and I didn't watch it. Carmen told me it was pretty interesting, but now I've seen there's people talking about the things that they saw in court that were not in the docuseries, because it's always tilted towards the it's slanted in the way that the person who's telling the story wants it to be slanted. So I shy away from those. Sometimes I'll go ahead and watch them, and then like, wow, it was really good. But then my mind's always working like, what's the other side of this? Because I've watched them and then watched trials. I'm like, that all the stuff they said or not all, but a lot of stuff they said in the docuseries was never presented in trial, never brought up, and it would have been brought up if it was true. Like, so I just don't trust them. I've not watched it. Carmen said it's interesting. His wife's in there. I've watched Defense Diaries and I can't remember the name of the channel that he's gone on. They've been discussing it. I've watched a couple of those. But actually it's like it has consumed the state, and I really just was happy to have a break from it. If something changes and they actually are able to say, we have proof that he was not involved and he didn't do it, good. If we have proof that he was involved and he did do it, great. Judge Gull is just continued on her way of blocking stuff, from what I've heard through like Defense Diaries. So I just am like, I don't like it. So I'm just kind of I don't want to talk about it. So I haven't watched it, but I might one day when I don't have anything else to do in a year or so. Okay, so that is the end of closing statements for the state. We will do closing statements for Betty's defense tomorrow. It's Mr. Early. We can speed him up more. She speaks faster than Mr. Early does. I thought that Betty had changed her. I thought Betty always had said in these trials that she had went there to self-delete. The whole conference to go there to confront them thing, I didn't remember that, and I thought that was something new she came up with in her book, in our 2023 book. Still, you don't confront people at 5:30 in the morning. Whatever. I mean, I guess you can, but she didn't. Like the state said, you would walk in and fling the door open. You'd make your presence known. Hey, I'm here. We're going to talk. Get up. Not sneak around and not do everything Betty did. He wouldn't do that. But so she didn't, maybe she, in her mind, she had convinced herself she was going there to confront them. I don't know. She wasn't going there to self-delete. I think she knew what she was going there for, and maybe just told herself that's not what she was going there for. But whatever. That's only my opinion. I'm not on the jury, so obviously. So everyone, we will be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern time. The defense is a little bit longer. It's almost 2 hours. So like I said, we'll speed him up just a touch. And, he takes a lot of pauses. Unfortunately, I can't hit L and 5-second fast forward through these videos, or I would, but it doesn't have that option. So I was not on the Sarah Boone jury. Flash fan. I was not. I never yelled at Flashman. I was not on Sarah Boone jury. I was not on the Delphi jury. I was not on the Betty jury. I've not ever been on a jury or yelled at Flashman. But thanks to June and Carmen, I know how to get out of it if I want to. Although I wouldn't. I would go do it. I would go do it. But I did. Flashman, I did not. I can't yell at you through a notification. I don't remember yelling because it never happened. Anyways, so thank you guys all so much. Thank you for the super chats, the super stickers, the gifted memberships, the memberships. I appreciate all of you and all of your guys' support. I can't do this without you. I could, but it would be boring and I'd just be talking to myself. So I don't want to. But I do really appreciate all of you very, very much. So please note that. Yes, June, I would not want to be in the prosecutor's line of fire with those eyes either. When she smiled, it was good. So have a great rest of your night. I didn't see anybody to redirect you guys to. If I miss anybody, sorry. So other than that, enjoy the rest of your night. If you haven't already, please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. Tell your friends, all that stuff that I'm really bad at doing, which is grifting. Thanks, Adair. And I will see you guys all tomorrow. And we're almost through. We've almost got this thing wrapped up. We're getting there. We're getting there.